Hello. Welcome to our Zoom room. We'll let everybody take a second to filter in. Usually takes a moment for the numbers to get to their final number. Thanks for joining us on a Monday. For those of you who've been with us before, it's a little unusual. We've done these on Friday, so hopefully I won't mention Friday at some point without thinking. But instead of being with you at the end of your week, we're with you at the top of your week. Feel free to grab a glass of water or a snack or something. We'll be together for about 1 hour. I'm Claire. I'm the Director of Marketing at Atlantic. And this is the final of our Live with Atlantic series that we've had going on this summer. For those of you who joined us before, you know all of this. If this is your first time, this will be actually a pretty simple tech today. So we'll spend the first 45 minutes in conversation between Neil and Isiah. And then the last 15 minutes are going to be reserved for questions. So if you have questions along the way that you'd like to ask Isiah, feel free to use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Enter them in at any time. We'll let them collect. And then in the last 15 minutes or so, we will select a couple to ask that have not been touched on during the conversation. If for any reason you also have technical issues that you need help solving, feel free to also use that Q&A. There'll be a few of us on the back end who are helping to manage any of that. You've heard me say this before. If you've joined us, we rely on the internet. Knock wood that everything will be working just fine today. But if for any reason we encounter some Wi-Fi issues, we'll take a second to fix and then get you on your merry way at 5 o'clock Eastern time. And I think that is it. Thanks again for joining. I'll hand it off to Neil and then I'll pop in at the very end.
Great. Thank you, Claire. Welcome, everybody. This is our final installment for this summer's virtual Atlantic series, Live with the Atlantic. And this is Inside the Ensemble. Before we get into introducing our esteemed guest, I just wanted to say again, thank you to everyone who's been tuning in to Atlantic. These are very strange times during the pandemic. And we are looking forward to getting back to live theater. We don't know when, we don't know how, but we hope it's going to be soon. This is also the end of our fiscal year. So if you've enjoyed any of this free programming and you feel the desire to make any kind of contribution at all, I think there's a button you can hit, or Claire will tell you later about the button you can hit to contribute, but it would mean the world to us. Yeah, thank you. It's my great pleasure. This is our final installment of Inside the Ensemble, and to introduce Isiah Whitlock, who's a longtime member of the Atlantic Ensemble, and has done all kinds of, just to name a few of his credits, most of you know his work. Obviously, he's known very well for the HBO's The Wire. He's done a number of Spike Lee's movies, most recently To Five Bloods. He was in the film Cedar Rapids. He's done a number of shows at Atlantic, Farragut North, Edmond, among others, and lots of other things that I'm not going to mention now, but you all probably know about. So Isiah, welcome, my friend. Welcome.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start. Let's go way back. Talk a little bit about where you're from, how you got started, because we're gonna get into some of the Ensemble Atlantic stuff and then move into your TV work. But let's talk about before that. Talk about how you started out.
Yeah, I grew up in Indiana, and I only mention that only because it is growing up in Indiana plays a huge part now in my career. I didn't realize it from the beginning, but as I look back, a little bit of the Midwestern thing kind of held on, and that's what, when I look at other works, that's what comes out.
Yeah.
It's hard to put my finger on it, but there's a difference, say from East Coast, West Coast, and then you've got that middle part. So, and I went to college in Minnesota.
Right.
I was a football player at the time, and I got back.
Did you go to college on a football scholarship?
I did. Yeah, I was They used to call me 10 miles of bad road. That's how bad I
was. So wait, how long did you last on the football team? This is Southwest Minnesota State University, right?
Yes. I was known as 10 miles of bad road. I was a defensive player. I didn't last too long. Things didn't go very well. I got hurt a lot. I had quite a few concussions and things like that. And so I decided to drop out and do something else. I just said, I can't, if I'm not going to play professionally, I should get this much attention. So I did, and I was looking for something to do, and I had gone to, I didn't even go to audition for a play, but I had gone with a friend to watch the audition process, and they were auditioning for The Crucible.
Yeah.
The Crucible.
This is in college.
And they asked me if I wanted to read, and I said, no, I'm just here to watch. And they said, no, come on, get up, read. So I read, and I got a part in the play as the jailer. I don't even think the jailer had very many lines, if any. But I got a part as the jailer. I was terrible. I was just. And I was fortunate enough to, years later, work with Arthur Miller. And I told him that story, that the first play that I had ever done was his, The Crucible. He asked me who I played. He said, did you play John Proctor? I was like, no, I didn't play John Proctor. I played the jailer. Kind of looked at me like I didn't know there was a jailer.
You forgot it, you've written. And when, just not to get off course from your early career, what was the play that you ended up doing where you met Arthur Miller?
I did a play called The American Clock, and it was for the Signature Theater. Right. And he was featured that year. And so I got a chance to work with him. And it was kind of like I do everything else, I just kind of took it in stride. It's Arthur Miller, he wrote the play. And I wish I had paid more attention, because now when I look back, I say to myself, oh my God, I actually worked with Arthur Miller,
The guy, yeah. But so you did the jailer, and you got it, but you liked it, I'm assuming, so that you stuck with it.
So I ended up in another play, a couple of more plays, and then that just sort of like became my major in college. And I had joined a band when I was in college called Clutching the Shifters, and they wanted to all drop out of college and go on the road. And I had promised my dad that I would graduate, and so I had to leave the band.
You were the lead singer, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
No, I was just eye candy.
Well, that too. That's I assumed that.
or okay, I used to be eye candy, but no, I just decided to drop out of the band, stay on course, graduate. And then when I left Southwest State, I went to San Francisco, and I joined the American Conservatory Theater in their acting program.
So that was like grad school. You went out there and you were, right. Had you applied before you got there, or were you living in San Francisco and then you heard about it?
What happened was I had gone out the summer right before my senior year in college. I had gone out, and they liked the stuff that I was doing, and they said, you can stay and just be a part of the program. And I said, no, I promised my dad I would finish college. I'm going to finish college. I said, but if I can come back, I'll do it. And he said, yes, you can come back.
And this was at the, because ACT at that time was still run by Bill Ball, right?
Uh-huh.
And that was a kind of an amazing, it has an incredible reputation for their ensemble work and all the stuff they were doing. So you were there at that time.
Yeah, I was there I got there in 75. That was the summer program.
Yeah.
Started their training program in 76. I mean, I know that's going way back, but it was an incredible time to be in San Francisco. And it was an incredible time to be with that company because they put the training program into their ensemble company. And I think I was doing maybe 5 or 6 plays a year.
Wow.
I mean, it was incredible. And to be working with some of those actors, just to be around them kind of showed me what it was all about. And at that time, it was all about the work. It was all about the play. It wasn't, we weren't so distracted by, say, things like television and film. Not to say that that's a distraction, but you were just responsible for doing the work and doing the play. And that's what I did. I did that for about maybe 4 or 5 years.
And they did all kinds of different plays, right?
They did. It was amazing. It was for a young actor, it was an incredible way to start. And some of the things I learned that actors would do, I still do today.
Yeah.
Very, very helpful for me. So I can't thank them enough for that. But it was sort of like their heyday. Bill Ball was there, and they had a bunch of actors. A lot of them were from New York or around the world. Different people would come through. Jessica Tandy.
Wow.
And I mean, it was an amazing time to be there and to listen to all of these people talk and stuff like that and spend time with them was just incredible. And then when I was there, I came to New York.
Would you consider, was that sort of the basis of a lot of your kind of technique, or how you started figuring out how you wanted to work, or the way in which you like to work you established during those years?
Yeah. Because early on, there was no one particular way.
Right.
And so you worked with a bunch of different directors that had, they had techniques from, other people and things like that. So you were exposed to all of these different ways. And what I began to realize was that if you don't allow yourself to get locked in, you can take a little bit from here, a little bit from there, and you can immediately see it. The minute you get the script, you can immediately see what the challenge is going to be and who you need to pull from. That has been the big advantage. And you begin to realize that there are some things that are still, universal. When you get into things like objectives, they may call it something else, needs, wants, given circumstances, things like that. Those things are universal.
Yeah.
You learn that, the life of that character doesn't start when you walk on stage. It starts off stage. You've got to bring it. They've got to be able to see the minute you come on stage, they've got to see that you've been somewhere else, as opposed to just standing in the wings and trying to get yourself revved up. It was those types of things that I learned on how just to be an actor, to be a performer.
And how big was the ensemble that they had? I'm assuming or hoping that because you're in that atmosphere, you were allowed to play parts that possibly you wouldn't have been normally allowed to play in the ensemble, or was it not that way? What was that like?
No, the ensemble was quite large.
Yeah.
Large being 30, 40 actors. and you got your season at the beginning as to what you were going, who you were going to be, what you were going to play, and then you spent the rest of the year trying to figure it all out. It was a little tricky back then because they only had a few African Americans in the company. When I say few, I mean like 2 to 3 at the most, unless they say something like Othello, where they had to bring somebody in. But I pretty much covered all of that.
Right.
And not in a cheesy kind of way, but I was able to see, you know, to develop a little bit of a range character-wise, which again, I use a lot of that today. But, and the plays that they had just didn't have my type in it, so to speak. So I had to make do with what I had. But I got enough just to be satisfied, to feel like I actually had a very, very nice career there. I mean, when time come to leave, I didn't want to go. I got, you know, they were going through financial troubles at the theater, and Bill had to lay a bunch of people off. And to me, in hindsight, it came at a good time because it forced me to move on at a time when I felt I should move on and maybe try some different things.
And did you know you were going to come to New York, or was it sort of like, should I go to LA or should I go to New York, or you just found yourself here?
I went to LA first. I was terrified of coming to New York. I had heard so much about it, and, you know, I thought, you know, I mean, New York, you know, those are serious actors there, you know. But I went to LA first, and I would go on auditions, and I would get this stuff, and I would say, oh man, this part is great. And they would say, yeah, but we're going to get a New York actor for this. We're only going to get New York actors for this. And usually they would be like some of the, you know, meatiest parts, but they had to get somebody from New York. And I remember saying to myself, then I need to get the fuck out of here and go to New York. You know, because the stuff they were, and it wasn't me saying it, but the stuff that they were coming up with, you know, boat captain and things like that, those were the LA parts. And,
right.
You know, I don't want to be playing boat captains my whole life, you know. I want to be the guy out there doing the stuff, you know. So I was in LA for about maybe 6 months. And
wow.
New York. And I've been here ever since.
And so you got to New York, and you were, because when we first met, you were doing lots of stage, right? But I can't remember if at that time you had already gotten into some TV and film. But I think the first play we worked on together, actually when I was still acting, right, was Mamet's play Edmund.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
By the time Edmund came along, I got, Edmund was 96. And I got to New York in 83.
Wow.
So I had been here for quite some time before then. And I was just basically working grind joints around the city. Just, you know, a play here, basement here, 50-seat house here. And it was fine as far as I was concerned. As long as I was working, I was fine.
Right.
You know, the survival job, bartending. I think when I came to audition for the Atlantic, I was coming from my catering job. I still had my white shirt. Yeah, I looked really lame, but you know, but I was working, you know, here and there, and doing a little bit of television, a little bit of film, a few commercials. I was still able to put together a career.
Yeah, a living. Yeah. Well, I should tell our viewing audience that we were also, we did this play Edmund, we did it both in Vermont, and then it was very successful when we did it in New York. But we were all so impressed with Isiah that we dubbed him the master thespian, and we still refer to Isiah as the master thespian. because of his incredible chops, his charm, his skill, his ability to his speech. Amazing.
You never said it that way. It was always the master thespian. Okay, all right, yeah. I get it.
So we met you, and we invited you into the ensemble, which was amazing, and thank you for becoming a part of the ensemble. So talk about, because you had, like you said, you'd put in your time. I mean, you really put in some serious time, and you know, working the odd jobs, and like you said, enjoying the process of whatever you could get. But then things started really happening for you. I mean, I don't know if the big sort of turning point in terms of TV was The Wire or things before that, but it felt like all of a sudden there was traction, and it feels like more and more and more, and now that seems to have blossomed into this incredible film career. But you want to talk about sort of the point at which, when you were doing stage, you sort of started to make a corner into doing all of it?
The thing is that I was doing stage, and for lack of a better word, it just seemed like I would do a job, no matter what it was. That job would end, and I had to get back in line and try to get my spot back. So,
Yeah.
And I did that for a number of years. Again, I was okay with it because I always had a fair amount of confidence that I was going to get another job or work. So it didn't seem to bother me all that much. But then I did a play written by a writer named Christopher Shin, and it was called Four. And we did it down in Tribeca. It was like a 50-seat house, and it was well reviewed. I think Ben Brantley even came down and reviewed it. I only say that because usually we associate him with the big Broadway show,
Right.
But he came down and he reviewed it, and Spike Lee came and saw the play, and he cast me in the 25th hour, and that started my relationship with him. But it also started my relationship with film and television on a constant basis, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It seemed like once the word got out, or really got out, I was off and rolling, because then I ended up in The Wire, and The Wire really kind of exploded things. But that's when I really started doing a lot of television and film.
Yeah, it's funny. Sorry to interrupt you, but we were talking to another ensemble member, Giancarlo Esposito, last week, and he was talking about how he had put in all this time in theater, and then Spike would Do the Right Thing, kind of gave him his first kick into it, and so it's interesting to hear you talk about what doors that opened for you.
Yeah. It was a big difference. It was all about, I mean, you always have the talent, but sometimes you need the perception, because there's a lot of talented actors out there that you just got to get that opportunity. People have to know. And I always have the confidence, but I was always feeling like I was having to wrestle with it and beg. And now it's a little bit different, where you get the call, or people want to find out if you're available. And it takes a little bit of the pressure off. You can kind of breathe a little bit and just go about doing the work.
Yeah.
I remember when I had to try to work, and you would wonder if you're going to be able to make enough to pay the rent, and it's hard to concentrate when the rent's due. So I mean, I had years of that. So it hasn't happened overnight.
Yeah, yeah. And then with regard to sort of like you're talking about the confidence and and technique, was being on the wire for that amount of time, did that help you kind of build, for lack of a better word, a sense of technique or confidence in front of a camera that helped you as you were making these sort of forays into film and other TV stuff?
Yeah, the approach was a little similar but different than, say, stage, because I didn't have that much time or confidence in front of a camera. But you reach that point where it's like, God damn it, I can't worry about it. I gotta play the moment. I gotta play these beats. And if I just gotta let them happen. And once I started doing that in The Wire, I think that's when it was liberating. It was, things started to happen because I was just letting things happen as opposed to trying to be so cautious, which can be deadly for an actor. I was very, very cautious. I wasn't worrying about that. I was more concerned with playing the character and playing the character the way I wanted to play it. And, you know, there were times when I thought, yeah, I might get fired, but I'm going to go ahead and do this. Only to find out that it worked. And when you have a couple of those moments, and then you just get a little bolder, and then you're just off and running, and you're like a train. It's hard to stop.
Well, the thing I always also appreciated about your work, both in theater and in film and TV, is you not only your versatility, but you seem equally at home in comedic roles as you do in dramatic roles. In fact, I always felt like there were times when you were sort of looking at a role and thinking, if there's a chance for some fun here, I'm going to have it. So I always love that, because it didn't seem like one or the other, but that you would go for all of it. And if there was the opportunity to have some fun, you could bring a lot of comedy to was that conscious for you, that you would gravitate towards comedic roles at all?
I never considered myself a funny person.
Yeah.
Or doing comedy. I always thought I was like this very serious actor, you know.
Actor thespian.
Yes, you know, wearing a big robe and, you know, the big hat and everything like that. But it seemed like the more serious I became, the funnier I got. It was like, and then I began to realize it's just sort of honest to that moment, and you just play it. Sometimes in a very serious way, the humor is going to come out. Now I kind of look for the humor, but I think a lot of my humor comes out of the fact that I'm usually so serious about it. I'm usually so committed to it that it comes out. I mean, I felt that about Clay Davis in The Wire. It was like I didn't think there was anything funny about it, you know. But when I went back and looked at it, I laughed.
Right.
So committed and so desperate on my part not to get caught or to go to jail or something, that it became comedic.
And if I remember correctly, was it Cedar Rapids where you're talking about that Midwestern thing where I felt like that was pretty funny, wasn't it? That role.
Yeah. They, but I think one of the reasons why they hired me was because the character was from Minnesota, and I had spent a lot of time in Minnesota, and I did feel that there's a difference between. I'm gonna piss a lot of people off now, but to me, there's a big difference between African Americans from Minnesota and African Americans from the East Coast or the West Coast. I'm not saying to me, there's a difference that I've always noticed and thought was, you know, sort of humorous. So that's what I wanted to bring to that character.
Yeah. Yeah.
But again, you know, it seemed like the more serious you take the dialogue, because if they write funny dialogue or humorous dialogue, all you got to do is just play it, and the dialogue's going to take care of the rest of it. You don't have to push it. And I see a lot of guys do this sometimes. They'll take the dialogue and they'll try to up it a notch to make it funny, and it just doesn't work.
Right.
I'm not going to mention the names, but the two guys that they wanted before they hired me for Cedar Rapids were comedians. And I was the only one who was not a comedian. And that is what made that dynamic work. It was sort of like you needed that straight guy, or you needed somebody to play off of. And I think the film would have imploded if everybody was a comedian fighting for those moments and those laughs. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. And now that you've been doing, do you find now you've got more, because you've been doing so many films and stuff, is there more of a variety? Because obviously we're at this significant moment in time and do you feel like for you in your career that that you're getting parts that are juicy or having a lot more of a choice of what you can do, or is it still a constant hustle?
I'm almost there.
Yeah.
I'm almost there. It always feels like it's a constant hustle. You know, you want to, there's certain things you want to do that you don't get a chance to do, but
Yeah.
you'll get a chance to do enough. So you can't really complain about it. I think what's starting to change though is I think people are starting to see the versatility that I have. And so what I love about it is that I get to play a variety of different characters that I don't get locked into, say comedy or tragedy or you know, muscle guy roles, which that wouldn't happen anyway. But but it's not, you know, I start to get more of a variety now, and that is what I really enjoy.
Yeah. And a couple of so there may be some students watching this or younger actors, but a couple of things with regard to your trajectory in your career. It seems like you're somebody who's always, like you're saying, just enjoyed the business of acting. You like to act, and whether it was doing tiny plays in New York downtown or TV series or films. Is there advice? Number one, is there advice you would give to young actors? And number two, did you feel being in the theater was a huge part of kind of your foundation as an actor and a person to be able to move into some of this other stuff?
I did. I felt the training that I got early on gave me that foundation that if I ever got into a jam, I could always go back to that. I learned how to improvise very well, and that has been very instrumental in the way I work. That I think people don't really understand improvisation, how it helps, because you know, improvisation is not where you want to go off on your own or something like that. You know, I never do it that way when I'm doing a play, because I always like to give respect to the writer. So I mean, who am I to change his words and things like that? So I never do it, but I do the improvisation to loosen me up, to help me start living that character a little bit, to see how it feels, and then to work my way into that character or into that moment. And I find that when I do television and film, and they say action, I sometimes start the action with an improvisation. Very, very small, but I never start just right on the line. That's just me. But it's like I want to get the feel. I want to get going. I want everybody to be with me. I remember I was working on a television show, and I was with a bunch of guys, and we were telling jokes. And I had the joke to tell, but I told another joke before that. So now everybody's laughing and everything. And then I go into the other joke, and we're already there. We're all, and the moment to me just worked beautifully, because it wasn't like you just had a bunch of people standing around waiting for the joke. We had all been sort of telling jokes and things like that before. So we're already living it. But that foundation early on is key.
Yeah.
You gotta put the time in. I find there are just so many actors who don't want to put the time in. And it's understandable, you want to take shortcuts, but you'll find very quickly there are no shortcuts. You'll just get exposed, and it'll lead to some bad days.
Yeah, no, that's interesting what you're saying of like the improvisation as a way of kind of checking in with yourself and getting a running start on it. I know, you're one of the few actors that I know who actually has a bobblehead character. And I want to talk, some people may be interested in knowing where your signature, where'd the she it come from? Let's talk about that.
Well, that goes back again. It's a Midwestern thing, I mean, it's my uncle used to say shit all the time, and he really said it, and I would sit there and listen to him all the time, and it would just, you have a conversation with him, and he would say it like 6-7 times in that conversation. It's like, how are you doing, Uncle Leon? Shit, I'm doing fine. Sleep well? Shit, How was dinner? Shit, I tore those pork chops up. Shit. And so to me, it was just a normal thing. But what I realized, and I mean, I've heard a lot of other people do it even before I started doing it, but I realized, again, here comes the Midwestern accent. And so I realized, because I analyzed it, I broke it down. I said, okay, I got to break it down. And I have a little bit of a Southern thing going on, and I've got a Midwestern twang in my nose. So the placement on the E has to come in the nose. I
said master thespian at work.
So instead of getting shit, you're gonna get shit. And so it just and then it was like, oh, okay, I get it. And then I realized, I said, well, I'm gonna have to live with this for the rest of my life. So I developed a bobblehead that pretty much as a joke, I had only planned to make like about anywhere from 50 to 100 and just give them away to friends. But we did a Kickstarter, and we sold like over $100,000 worth of things to make the bobbleheads. I didn't even have anybody to make them, so then I had to find a company to make them. When they gave me the $100,000 check, I wanted to say, you guys knew you were dealing with Clay Davis, and I could just take the $100,000 and say, hey, look, I gave it to a charity, me. But I did get the bobbleheads made, and we've sold over 10,000.
Wow.
Counting. And if you want one, if anybody out there listening wants a bobblehead, they can go to shit.com. And I think if you just put in, you got to use 9Es, SH, and then 9Es, and then Google takes over and does the rest and takes you right to the site. So sheit.com is where you go if you want a bobblehead.
And I should say, having known you almost 25 years, that I've always found it amazing that your curiosity and your interest in all kinds of things. I mean, I know for a while when I knew you early on, you were boxing, right? You used to box and were training all the time. I know you're also like one of my few friends who you're a wine connoisseur. You love wine, right?
And I make wine.
Talk about that. You make wine.
Yeah, I source grapes from California, and I do the blending and everything, crushing, fermenting here, and then I wait a year and I bottle it. It's pretty tasty. I wish I had a big enough operation to sell it because I think I would do very well. But what I do make is legit. I mean, it's I make the big cabs, the big cab Merlots. I make Pinot Noir, and to me, the fun comes is when you start doing different blends. You know, where you take, 40% cab, 40% Merlot, 10% Malbec or Syrah. Syrah will make the wine kind of sexy, because Syrah on its own gets a little bit of a pepperish taste. But if you just put maybe 10% in, it'll make the wine very, very sexy, very subtle, tasty.
Amazing. It's amazing. No, you should give a little bit with the bobbleheads, so then everybody will know. Before we go to some questions in a couple of minutes, I know you just did The Five Bloods, and rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman was in that as well. Talk about that experience. Talk about that, because that sounded like a really, I shamefully have not seen the film yet, but what you described to me about it sounded kind of like an incredible process shooting it. But before we go to questions, I just thought it'd be interesting to hear you talk about that.
Yeah, we shot 2 months in Thailand and about 2 or 3 weeks in Vietnam. We got like a lot of exteriors in Vietnam, and there's a dance scene in the beginning of the movie that we actually shot at a nightclub in Vietnam called Apocalypse Now. It's got to be the most amazing experience to date as far as an actor. I mean, it was great being in Thailand and Vietnam, but we were in the jungle in Thailand and mostly Thailand, and the elements. I mean, it was so hot. There were so many mosquitoes. It really made you wonder how anybody, say like during the war, survived that situation, because it took everything I had and then some to do it. I was very happy that the movie turned out the way it did. It was good, but it wasn't an easy shoot, but it was beautiful. I mean, and working with the guys, Delroy Lindo, who also studied at the American Conservatory Theater.
Oh, wow.
Clark Peters, Norm Lewis, and of course, Chadwick Boseman, who just passed away recently. I mean, that was heartbreaking. It really just kind of stopped me in my tracks, that I had spent that kind of time with him. I think his stuff was only shot for maybe about 2 or 3 weeks, but it was just very, very close, and could not have been a nicer guy, very giving. And to see that happen was devastating.
Yeah, I mean, what an extraordinary actor. Such a loss.
Yeah.
Such a loss. Well, let me see, check our time. Yeah, we're good. You guys, Annie, you got some questions for Mr. Whitlock?
Yes, indeed. We have a lot of fans in the audience, including an alum from Southern Minnesota State University, and lots of people who are sending love. So one audience member observed a relationship between David Simon's work in The Wire and later work and the connection between that and Atlantic's work and Atlantic Acting School's acting technique, practical aesthetics. Did you observe that? Is that a connection that you felt? A very long question, but did you feel that?
Uh, I'm trying to understand the question because
Like basically the wire feeling like it was written in a similar style to sort of Atlantic's production history, or just also practical aesthetics as a technique of acting.
well, the two things here. One, I mean, I only worked different plays and stuff at the Atlantic, so I'm not really that familiar with, say, the Atlantic process as far as the school. But there were times when there's always going to be something that you can use from these other moments that I definitely used in The Wire. I pretty much pulled out everything in The Wire. I mean, I alluded to that, is that once I liberated myself from being cautious and got everything figured out, then everything just started to roll, and I just let things.
You're still good.
Wait a minute, I'm so sorry.
You're good. We can hear you.
Don't worry about it. Yeah, we can hear you.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
So yes, I mean, you know, and as long as you have that foundation, I think you're going to be fine, no matter where you are or what you do. It doesn't matter who's writing the script. You'll always be able, with that foundation, you'll always be able to make it work. If that makes sense, or if I was able to explain that.
No, you're good. Isaiah, I think that was a phone call requesting a bobblehead or possibly a bottle of wine. So the calls are going to keep coming. The next question is, how do you reignite your creative juices in between roles? What are your interests or hobbies?
Well, I try not to take too much time in between roles. Sometimes that's forced upon me, and if I do, then when you say hobbies, I mean, making wine is a hobby of mine. Drinking wine is a hobby of mine, but as far as reigniting those creative juices, once I hear about a project, and I just got to hear about it, it seems like I get such a rush, and I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go. Sometimes it doesn't happen, and then I just forget about it. But if I get it, then I'm ready. I'm ready to go, and start work. And I immediately start thinking about it, and that's enough for me.
Awesome. So you've lived in a lot of places, but you've lived for a long time in New York, as evidenced by your Yankees hat. Can you talk a little bit about what it's like to be in New York right now, and how you feel about New York generally in terms of in your heart?
Well, I just got back from New Orleans. I spent almost a year in New Orleans because I've been shooting a new series called Your Honor with Bryan Cranston, and we had to shut down in March because of the COVID. I stayed in New Orleans for a while, and then I worked my way back here to New York. I got back about a month ago. I love New York. I mean, I don't know if it's because I've just been here for so long, or if it's just totally different from the rest of the world. But I feel more at home here than I do when I go other places. Even if I go to Los Angeles, any place I go that I have to drive, I'm a little, I'd rather just sometimes walk and just, take in the scenery, take in the people. That's where you learn, to me, is from watching other people. And it's one of the reasons why I like to travel, because I see a lot of different people. And I don't think there is a role that I've ever actually done where, and I mean this, I don't think there's anything I've actually done where I haven't heard another person say the line first or say it with a certain intention. And that drives me a lot. I steal a lot. I steal a whole lot. And again, going back, I got that from one of the actors at ACT who told me, he said, if you want to be a really good actor, you've got to be a thief. You just steal, 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 steal. And he said that he had gotten that from Laurence Olivier. He had worked with Laurence Olivier, and Laurence Olivier told him that, and he told me. So I do steal a lot of different things and moments. I mean, I'm gonna steal shit from Uncle Leon. I'm gonna steal the way I talk from a couple of guys that I knew in Minnesota. I'm just gonna steal, steal, steal. And trust me, it works. Because you'll never do it the way they did it. It'll just take on a world of its own. It's gonna be you. If it's coming from you, you'll be able to manipulate it and change it.
In some ways, Isiah, it almost feels like another way of saying stealing is like you're listening and you're learning from all these people. And while it may feel like stealing, you're also saying, hey, you're curious and saying, hey, that's interesting. Let me try that out, which is great.
It's a better way of saying it. I'm going to say that from now on.
I like steal. Steal's good. Steal's good.
I don't want the people out there saying, oh my God, he's a thief. He's you know. So.
What is the thing or moment you're proudest of in terms of your career or your life, Isiah?
The biggest thing is that I'm still working. The biggest thing is that I mean, I never thought I would work this long and still enjoy being an actor. But that to me is the biggest thing. I mean, I've had different roles and things like that, and say like, doing The Wire or doing 25th Hour or The Five Bloods or something of that nature. But that's all a result of being in the game, and you can't win if you don't play. And I've been playing for 40 years.
Amazing.
Amazing. I think we'll do one more if that's all right. If you could revisit a past performance, which would it be and why?
It might be the jailer in The Crucible. Because I was terrible. Let me just say, the line was, "Come on, John," because the director said, "You're trying to get John Proctor out of the house, so you got to say, come on, come on." So I said, okay, so you just say, "Come on, John." So I said, "Come on, John." That's my line. That's my line. And I practiced in the mirror. I would say 3 hours saying, "Come on, John. Come on, John. Come on, John. Come on, John." And every night when we did the show, I would ask other actors, how did it sound and everything? And they were like, "Oh, it's good, it's good." And then I remember thinking to myself, God, what's going to happen when I get like a full play? I mean, 3 hours in the mirror on this one line saying, "Come on, John," and I'm terrible. But I got better. And if I could redo that, I would, I don't know. Now that I think about it, I might still be pretty bad at it. But but who knows? Who knows? I don't really have too many regrets on roles that I play. I mean, even when I read what critics have to say, I always say, they don't know what I've gone through. They don't know what my approach was. They don't know the work and everything that I put into it. And it just didn't work out. But I never look at that as being a reflection on me. I just look at it as, well, this didn't work. On to the next thing. So I never really regret it, because I feel like, everything I do, I'm putting in 110%. And if it doesn't work, then it just doesn't work. usually I say to myself, well, I did what I wanted to do. So that's me. And if you don't agree with it, well, then what am I going to do?
It's funny. That's also that final sentence you said. It's also, I think, how we've tried to approach doing plays at the Atlantic, which is we believe in it. We do what we try to do what we want to do. And sometimes the critics like it and sometimes they don't. But at the end of the day, you got to believe in what you're doing and have your own say. Hey, I've got one final question for you, which is, aren't you a member of some music hall of fame somewhere? Is that true?
Yes, I'm a member of the Mid-America Music Hall of Fame because Clutch and the Shifters, which was the name of the band that I was a part of in college, they went on and played throughout the Midwest. And then we got a call about 10 years ago to go into the Mid-America Music Hall of Fame, which is, I mean, Bob Dylan is in this Hall of Fame, so don't laugh. But like Neil, but I was one of the founding members of the band. So there would be no Clutch and the Shifters if it wasn't for me. So they called me back and we got inducted into the Mid-America Music Hall of Fame and we got plaques and everything like that. But I do have the picture. I just happen to have the picture here of me in Clutch and the Shifters.
Get it? Let's see it. We got to see it. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about right there. And is that a jumpsuit or just a beautiful white silk shirt? It looks incredible.
That's jumpsuit, man. I
That's
told you I was eye candy, man. And I mean, I had the hair, I had the glasses, I had the thing. I used to do a dance called the Funky Penguin. It used to just drive the girls wild. But it was, I think I'm banned in North Dakota, but because they just couldn't take it. But that's me and that's the band in the back. This guy here is Clutch. That's our manager, Weaver. Our drummer. I mean, but yeah, that's me. That's me.
You look amazing, and I like the sunglasses are incredible. The whole thing. We're gonna have to, maybe we'll have to revive. We might have to create a show around that for you at the Atlantic.
Good. Because I mean, I'm still like, I'm not that far removed. I mean, and I did a little bit of the Funky Penguin in Defy Blood. So, I mean, I can still, we should talk.
Absolutely. You're on. That seems like a great place looking toward the future to call it. Hey man, it's such a pleasure, to talk to you and also to have you as a longtime member of the ensemble. We got to get you back up on stage soon if we can grab you in between all these film and TV gigs. But it's great, and congratulations on all the incredible work you're doing, because it is really an inspiration to hear you talk about just how long and amazing and rich a career you've had, but also that you really put in your time doing all this incredible stuff, and to see you now doing so much TV and film and rich work, it's fantastic. So thank you.
More than welcome.
And Claire, you want to come back and say hi? You still there? Yeah, there she is.
Yeah, sure am. Thanks for vamping. I was laughing so hard in the background that I think it would have been pretty weird if I'd come in. I could barely breathe. Isiah, you were the perfect person to end on. It's so good. We learned a lot. I can't believe you had that photo. Ooh, sorry.
The perfect person to end on, but I'll take it.
For us, absolutely. Also, I should mention that you voiced the voiceover for one of our Atlantic video ads, which folks, if they opened their pre-show email, may have heard. Your voice is so recognizable, and we have it in some of our own work. So thank you for that.
More than welcome.
It's been such a pleasure and an honor hearing you speak today. Thank you for being So incredible, so generous. And thank you to all of those of you who joined today. If you joined at any point during this series, I can't believe we've come to the end. We've said this before, but it's so true. These moments are the highlights of our week. I'm not so sure what we're going to do in this moment, but I will say we are cooking up some new virtual opportunities. So keep an eye. You'll be on our mailing list. Keep an eye out. Fans of our Technique Tuesday series will probably be excited. And lots more. You know, we're entering a whole fall of virtual. So keep an eye out. And Neil mentioned this at the very top, and I'll just reiterate, it's also in the chat. Today happens to also be the end of our fiscal year. If you have been moved, if you have the means to do so, we would welcome a gift of any size to Atlantic, especially today. And thank you for being in community with us. It means so very much, it really does.
Yeah, thank you all. Thank you, Isiah. And as Claire was saying, stay tuned, because we'll be coming back with hopefully lots of interesting virtual programming. And then whenever we get back, are allowed to go back into our theater, lots of great live theater. And you never know, you might see Isiah in a white jumpsuit with some amazing.
You'll all be able to say, I remember when, in that manila envelope, the moment it just sparks flew. Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Be well. Have a great week. Bye.